Here in this video, I'm going to be giving my review of The Batman, spoiler free. Although, to be honest, there really isn't anything spoilerific about this film anyway. Now, this film has been under an incredible, what you would call, I guess, development hell throughout the years. It was conceived years ago, originally supposed to be a standalone film with Ben Affleck's Batman, and that got rearranged to be a full-on reboot. The director was signed all the way back in like 2014. You know, it had the COVID delays, all that kind of stuff. And thankfully, after all these years, it's finally out. To put into perspective, the original teaser trailer came out October of 2020, and then over a year and a half later, we're finally getting the film right here. Now, Batman has had an incredible legacy on film. You know, the role is basically James Bond now when it comes to different sort of portrayals, directors, interpretations, film styles, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned the director of this film is Matt Reeves, who, if you're not familiar with him, he directed the final two installments of the recent Planet of the Apes trilogy, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes, two very high quality films. And then Batman himself, or the Batman in this film, is played by Robert Pattinson of sort of Twilight fame and all that kind of good stuff. For this film, in a world separate from the established current DCEU, the Batman teams up with Commissioner Gordon and the GCPD to take down a serial killer known as the Riddler. Now, along with being known as the Dark Knight, Batman's other notable moniker is the world's greatest detective. Despite that, it's never really been completely committed to on film. You know, the 90s films, those original series in the 90s, they really kind of ignored it. The recent Snyder interpretations didn't really bother with it at all. Only in The Dark Knight was it only really explored just a little bit, not to the fullest exploration, but it was kind of there. In this film, The Batman, it's the first Batman film to really commit to it throughout the film when it comes to being the world's greatest detective and being sort of a real detective film. And really, there's no appropriate time to do it, especially to make that commitment, especially in the film featuring the Riddler as your villain. Also noticeable in the film is the dynamic when it comes to Batman himself. You know, since 1989, films with Batman have really made sort of a commitment to sort of Batman and the man behind the mask, Bruce Wayne, towards basically sort of like a 50-50 balance when it comes to screen time, sometimes leaning more towards Bruce Wayne, such as like in The Dark Knight Rises, where it's really mainly more of a Bruce Wayne story. The Batman really tilts the scales here to where the ratio feels more like 85% Batman and 15% Wayne. You know, in this film, Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the true persona. The film is dedicated to providing as much great Batman content as possible. When it comes to the detective work that I mentioned, the action sequences, the intimidation, the interactions, the Batmobile, all of it great stuff. To its detriment, though, was the development of Bruce Wayne himself. It really does suffer here. There's really not a ton of sort of worthwhile Bruce Wayne content or development here. He's mainly portrayed as sort of like a disturbed individual, truly committed to his cause as the Batman, 110%. There's not really much of an effort to showcase those sort of like Bruce Wayne type persona moments when it comes to sort of like the, you know, sort of the cheerful kind of personality in public, the sort of playboy personality, that kind of stuff. It's really completely gone. You know, this is very sort of the most disturbed portrayal of Bruce Wayne yet, towards really almost kind of like a psychopath with how dedicated he is to his cause. You know, for me, it would have made him sort of a more well-rounded, likable character to give him more of sort of those Wayne-type traits, because otherwise he's just sort of like kind of a stoic kind of robot, just sort of like when he's Bruce Wayne. There's just really not a whole lot there when it comes to Bruce Wayne. Despite these complaints, as Batman, Robert Pattinson, he was really good. You know, the voice worked, the suit looked good. He definitely worked here. You know, it definitely could tell he was up for the role in the trailers, and for the most part, he delivers on what you would hope he would do as Batman. Also very good here was Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He was definitely I think the highlight of those three right there. All of them fit what's thought to be sort of the ideal versions of the characters these days, and all of them were very good. Andy Serkis I thought was fine and actually good as Alfred, but he really doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, nor does he have much to do throughout the film. The Riddler here is done very differently compared to what's traditionally thought as sort of the main sort of traditional version of the character. But what they do here does work, and it definitely has a whole lot of disturbing moments. So like, whoa, you know, that's definitely not your '60s Adam West Riddler right there. I'll leave it at that. Speaking of moments, the film has plenty of moments, which leads to a whopping runtime of 2 hours and 56 minutes. Well, without credits, 2 hours and 50 minutes. I mean, what? That's an insane in the main brain runtime, and definitely a runtime that I've definitely felt throughout the film. You know, not that the film ever became bad at any point, far from it, but it's just so much stuff that the film goes through to where it does honestly become kind of overload at one point. So I realized at one point, oh shit, I've been here a while and there's still over an hour to go throughout the movie. You know, it's a whole lot of stuff in there. So like I said, it does kind of become overload at one point. Part of that runtime that I didn't care for was sort of going into sort of a cover-up story that tied into sort of the present day and the past when it comes to Bruce's parents. I did appreciate, though, that none of the runtime was dedicated to seeing Bruce's parents get shot again. You know, that's something we definitely did not need to see again, especially after we had just seen it in the recent Joker film. This film is very much the Spider-Man Homecoming when it comes to its approach. Just jumping into the world of a character that we don't need to see the origin story of. We know exactly who this is. The audience know who it is. And we just jump into it and go on sort of a fun adventure with the character. An appropriate adventure that really brings out sort of the best of the character. You know, I do think this film brought out the best in Batman. Like I said, when it came to detective work, you know, the sequences, the stuff you want to see Batman do, all that kind of stuff. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Its main problem for me is that it's just too long. You know, that kind of runtime, I personally find it to be inexcusable and kind of irresponsible. You know, a 3-hour runtime, that's just crazy. I don't, like I said, I don't know what exactly I would cut out, but I definitely don't think a standalone first Batman film in a series needs to be almost 3 hours long. That's pretty crazy. But like I said, there is plenty of great Batman content in there, and hopefully the film gets better as I watch it more. Because like I said, I really did enjoy this movie. I just did think it was really kind of long. I also did really appreciate that this world felt very unique compared to every other Batman film adaptation that we've seen. You know, the best comparison would be sort of the recent sort of Arkham Asylum games, and those games are great. And you can see the inspiration in there, but this film definitely feels unique in the world itself and Batman and all that compared to all the other film adaptations that we've seen. And there's a whole lot to look forward to when it comes to a sequel, you know, and some stuff I'd really like to see. For me personally, I would really like to see next a proper live action version of Mr. Freeze, but we'll see what we get in the very near future, I'm sure. So that'll do it for this review, my thoughts on the Batman. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.